Welcome to Life Recovery Today with Stephen Arterburn. In the next half hour, you'll obtain insights and tools to transform your life using the biblical principles found in the 12-step program. We believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience because we all have struggles in life. Struggles with addictions, food, depression, anxiety, and relationships, to name a few. You'll be encouraged to see how others have found a new way of life with hope for the future through life recovery. Your host is Steve Arterburn, founder of New Life Ministries and Women of Faith, author of over 100 books, and teaching pastor at Northview Church in Carmel, Indiana, one of the 20 largest churches in America. Steve is the co-editor of the Life Recovery Bible, the #1 selling recovery Bible. With over 3 million copies sold, this is the Bible given to inmates by Prison Fellowship and the Pew Bible for the Salvation Army. Now here's Steve.
Hi there. Welcome to Life Recovery Today. Got a great guest, as I think I always have a great guest, but today is a guy that's got a heart for God and a heart for recovery, and he's helped literally thousands and thousands of people, and you're going to love getting to be with him, as I always do. I mean, he's just an inspiration to me. But first, I want to mention something to you. You know, last week, there was a story in the news about a lobster diver who was scooped up and swallowed by a whale. Now, unlike the story of Jonah, he was only there for about 30 seconds, but he really thought he was going to die. And he started beating on the whale's insides to get the whale to let him out. And sure enough, the whale spit him out after about 30 seconds. He actually suffered quite a few bruises, but no broken bones. Pretty amazing. And one of the things I love about that is that it does kind of verify there was the possibility that Jonah was swallowed by a real live whale. Now, if it's in the Bible, I believe it. But a lot of people think it's just a big fairy tale. Here's just another little proof that, if it's in the Bible, it's true. Which also reminds me that the thing that was true about Jonah, that even though he was God's man in ministry, he didn't want to really help people be saved. I mean, Nineveh needed to be punished in his mind, and God had compassion because God is rich in mercy. So here's this minister that needed a lesson in compassion. I have found that a lot of folks that say they're ministers, that you believe are full of integrity and love and like God mercy, well, it's really not there. And a lot of times what is there is what was there with our good friend Jonah. Anger, bitterness, resentment. You have to wonder, where did that come from? Well, in this day and age, if he was sitting around talking to us, we'd be asking him, hey, let's talk about that father of yours. Because so often, the bitterness, the anger, and the rage of a man comes from a father wound that's never been healed. We need to recover from alcohol, drugs, sex addiction, all sorts of things. But a lot of times, it's just a real old, tragic, deep, painful wound that's there from our Father. Whatever the challenge, we want to help you with it. Well, when we come back, I think you're going to enjoy this discussion of what recovery means in the real lifetime of a man committed to God.
Are you going through your struggles alone? Do you want someone to talk to help you through your pain? Do you feel like a failure when you relapse again, telling yourself, next time will be different? Don't walk this path alone anymore. Join a life recovery group today and be a person that your friends and family can be proud of. God created us to be in community, and we believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience. There are life recovery groups all over the country, and if there isn't one in your area, we can help you start one. Life Recovery brings recovery to you, right where you are. You'll take a journey with others to find healing and freedom. Whether you're looking to join a group or start one, New Life Ministries is here for you. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE or visit liferecoverytoday.net.
Welcome back to Life Recovery Today. I said I had a special guest, and his name is Jim Phillis. Actually, ought to be calling him Dr. Phillis because he has a doctorate, and he went to school real close to me at a university that I love, Anderson University, and we were just talking. He's been around New Life for 17 years. Jim, thanks for joining me on Life Recovery Today.
I'm glad to be with you. Always good to talk with you, Steve.
Now, Jim, when you got involved with New Life, I mean, it wasn't because you did a research project and found out that you needed to go to work for a ministry or something. I mean, you were kind of drawn to us because you had dealt with things in your own life. You have a recovery story. Can you tell us about what led up to you ending up in recovery?
Yeah. I mean, all the way back in grade school, I was introduced to masturbation and pornography. And I grew up in a home, we were church, but we didn't have relationships with Christ. I didn't know Christ by faith. That didn't happen until I was 19. And so in high school, I experimented with alcohol, experimented with marijuana. I was chasing girls in high school and very, very empty. And then turned 19, and God just in a miraculous way put me in a place where I heard the gospel in a way that made sense to me, like it never had before. So actually, it was on Good Friday of 1976, about 2 o'clock in the morning, I prayed to receive Christ as Savior. And at that time, I gave up. I've never been drunk since then, never used marijuana, any other drugs since then. Put away porn at that point. And then probably about 9 months later, just accidentally, I found a stash of pornography in our house. And I wasn't looking for it. I just stumbled into it, and it reintroduced itself.
Yeah.
And I struggled off and on for a number of years. I went through seminary, and there were periods of time when I was sober, but then there would be periods of time where I would go back. I didn't really understand any of that, Steve. The cycles that I was experiencing.
Yeah.
And finally, it ended up. I pastored 4 different churches, 4 different states over the course of about 20 years. And I was in a really, really sad place. I was using again, and there was scrambled porn late night on cable TV, and I just was ashamed. And I happened to be at a church leaders conference, and God just impressed me. There's a guy that I'd met. We'd had a relationship as prayer partners for a period of time, and the Lord just laid it on my heart. You need to tell John what you're struggling with. And I did. And I was terrified. I thought, this is the stupidest decision you've ever made in your life. Because I figured he'd go back, tell the organizers, they'd tell the other men from the church I was serving, the whole of my life would blow up.
Yeah.
And I got to the end of my story, and I looked him in the eye, and he said, I'm struggling too.
Wow. Awesome.
And that's the first time I ever had access to an accountability relationship where we were really telling each other the truth.
Jim, let me interrupt you for a second. Back in 76, if a person was involved with mass murder and heroin addiction or whatever it was, and you came to Jesus, the expectation was that, okay, now that you've been changed, that's all you need to do, and you're just going to grow and everything's going to get better. Don't you think that was kind of the mindset, and that you didn't have anybody because probably no one around you was saying, hey, you really need to connect here and get in a group and bolster up your growth and all that. Am I right about that or not?
Yeah, completely. And the other thing, Steve, was my own experience. When I came to Christ, my life was transformed so dramatically, and all of those other things fell off. I wasn't participating. And all of a sudden, when pornography was reintroduced, Well, that just was, it made my heart sick. I
Yeah,
felt so guilty, and I was embarrassed and afraid to tell anybody what I was struggling with.
sure. Well,
And
you
I,
know,
and
Jim,
I,
it's a reminder that everybody that Jesus healed, they got sick of something else later and died. And
yeah,
for us to think that because, and I really believe that it happened, the past sins were wiped out. I mean, the craving, the desire, it goes away. But to think, and I think this was the mindset then, still with some people, that it's never going to come back. I'm never going to be tempted. I'm never going to be vulnerable again. That was the naivete then, but I think we've come a long ways since then.
yeah. Well, so that was 2001 when I had
Yeah.
that conversation with John. And it changed my life in a number of ways. And one of the ways that it changed it was I was no longer, I wasn't driven by guilt in the same way. So I began to exercise leadership in our local church in a different way. And curiously enough, 3 years later, almost to the day, the church leader said, "Jim, we just don't want you to pastor our church anymore."
Wow.
And it was a devastating thing. And I mean, I had a son in college, had two kids in high school,
Oh my goodness.
and we just didn't know what the Lord was going to do. And a fellow that I had actually interviewed for a church job along the way, he had found a job at New Life. He was working as an assessment counselor in the call center. And he had found a job in a local church. He lived down in Greenville, South Carolina. He happened to know my situation. He said, "Hey, Jim, there's this job I think you'd be really, really good at." And so I got on the phone. I did an interview. Within 10 days of his contacting me, within 10 days, I'd been hired by New Life and began immediately.
Lucky us.
Well, God brought us together in a really striking way. I had no idea that the training that I'd done in seminary, the biblical and theological training, would have such a profound impact in the ministry that would unfold for me over the course of these 17 years.
What
God
all
has
have you
really been
done
good.
for what all have you done for New Life over those 17 years?
So I served as an assessment counselor. The ministry wanted to begin a coaching ministry, and so I went through some training and became certified as a life coach. I've served as a presenter at EMB. I've served as a group
Every Man's
facilitator.
Battle.
Every
No
Man's
one knows
Battle.
what. Yeah, no one knows what that is. EMB. Okay, Every Man's Battle. Yeah, presenter.
Facilitator at Every Man's Battle. I've worked as a facilitator at the Intimacy and Marriage Workshop, the New Life Weekend. I can't remember what we're calling the weight loss weekend, but I think with the exception of the Restore Weekend, I've worked every other weekend that New Life has offered as a
Well,
facilitator. So it's been
well,
fun.
it's so fascinating because you've been such a blessing and people respect you so much. But I mean, you are one of these instances of true transformation where somebody literally is stuck, wounded, hurt, beaten down, and then now, I mean, 17 years of helping us help others, and you really do it in an amazingly wonderful way. Now, I've got to take a break, Jim, but when we come back, I want you to talk a little bit about what is important for folks in recovery. What have you learned in your own recovery and in working with other folks in all of these different intensives that we do other than Restore? All right, so we'll take a break. We'll come right back after this. But I hope and pray that if you don't have a Life Recovery Bible, that you'll be sure and call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE, get a copy, and that first workbook. Now, there are other workbooks. There's one on depression, another one to help you through the grieving process. There's eating disorders, and there's a special workbook on sexual addiction. All of that at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. You can also find really the heart of life recovery, Dr. Dave Stoop. You can find his latest book with me, The Soul of a Hero. It's the last one we did together. I think you'll like it. But we'll be back right after this.
It's hard to find a trusted friend when you're in crisis. Someone who's been there and understands, but who also has the training and skill to give you practical help. Family, friends, and churches want to help, but often they're not equipped to care for those dealing with problems like addiction and pornography, infidelity, anger, depression. New Life Ministries is here to provide help and hope in life's hardest places. We're not focused on making people feel better. We're focused on helping people do the work that will help them be better. At New Life, we have resources available to help you, like books, DVDs, CDs, workshops, and our network of licensed counselors. If you need help, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE and begin your new life today.
Welcome back to Life Recovery Today. We've been talking with Jim Phillis, Dr. Jim Phillis, and he has worked with New Life for 17 years, many different positions. Talked about his own struggle as a minister in the ministry, and we're so grateful that, number one, he found recovery, number two, that he found New Life, because he's such a great asset to us here. So Jim, you've been in recovery, you've helped people in recovery. What do you think is the biggest roadblock to people guys that just don't want to get into recovery? Why don't they start this whole new life? Why do they hang on to something that's just destroying them in every way possible?
I think there are a couple things, Steve. The first thing, I think we're afraid to acknowledge that we need help.
Yeah.
Just plain and simple. We live in a culture where, I did it my way. You can't tell me what to do. And so depending on somebody else in recovery, acknowledging I need help is something that's extraordinary. I've worked with a lot of people who have been through 12-step programs, and even folks that work through 12 steps. It is a struggle to get to the place where I'm relinquishing control of my life. I'm relinquishing the responsibility to manage all of the decisions of my life. And so what I find is, and this is the same, it happens in the church too, Steve. I want Jesus the Savior, but in terms of actually living each day and decision by decision in response to his lordship, man, he asks some really hard things, and I'm not sure I want to do all of those things.
Yeah.
So it's self-determination. It's giving up self-determination is a huge piece.
Okay, so let me ask you this, Jim, real quick. I want to interrupt this because you're qualified in the area of coaching, counseling, recovery, and theology. So I would like you to explain the difference. A guy that's been in recovery a very long time, he wakes up and he and his wife are struggling. So even a guy that's been in recovery a long time, you say, has a hard time relinquishing control. So how does a surrendered recovering guy approach the problem with his wife? How does the one that is still struggling to relinquish control, how does he approach that struggle with his wife? Can you give us the difference?
Yeah. Many times, Steve, the person who's struggling by himself, the person who's only aware of the pain that he's experiencing because of his addiction, he stays stuck because it's just about relieving his pain. The guy who wakes up next to his wife and realizes this is the excruciating pain that she's experiencing because of the way that I'm living, I believe that's the person who begins to take things more seriously and who begins to relinquish. Yeah, I have to give this up because it's not just about me. It's about what I'm doing to my wife. It's the impact that I'm having on my kids. It's the way that I'm hiding from everybody, and I hate living this way. So it's getting outside of myself, outside of my own head and my own experience. And I think that's what makes the difference, Steve.
Yeah, and I think my wife's little phrase of humbling down, I think the one that doesn't do that, just has found it impossible to humble down. And sometimes they have to be humbled before they ever humble down and do it. Well, tell us something over these years that you have learned in your own recovery or watching other people recover and transform their lives at New Life. What's something that would be valuable for every person who struggles to know?
Steve, a lot of people think that if I get rid of alcohol, if I get rid of cocaine, if I get rid of pornography, everything will be great. And I challenge people, alcohol, pornography, cocaine, they are not the problem. They are a problem, but they are not the problem. In fact, what's happened is over time, cocaine and pornography and the rest, they have become the solution. They're a failed solution. They're an ineffective solution for the problems that I have. Disappointment, a sense of being unfulfilled, unsuccessful, all the negative messages that I can say about myself, self-condemnation. I use all those things to try and drown out the messages of self-condemnation, and they just don't work. And so I can stop using alcohol, I can stop using drugs, but if the messages keep playing, I'm going to look for another solution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it's not about the substance, it really is about self-condemnation. And that's why I think the Christian has an advantage.
Oh, yes.
Because the gospel says you are not condemned any longer.
Yeah.
Jesus has allowed you to pass from condemnation now into life, and we have a legacy to live out that means I don't have to be living in that condemnation anymore.
Yeah. I love that. I think it's so true. Another question for you, Jim. You've watched a lot of guys come and go through Every Man's Battle. Some of them are sex addicts. I would say most of them are sex addicts in one form or another. Why do you think Every Man's Battle is so effective in helping guys that, they've struggled by themselves 20 years? They're really deep into sexual addiction. Why has that been so helpful to so many?
It's the first place it's safe to be the guy that they are.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you, Steve, one of the most transformative things about working at New Life were the other guys that I was working with in the call center. Guys like Doug and Paul. And, we've been together now 17 years. Most of these guys are now working the Every Man's Battle workshop. We're colleagues together. And they made it safe for me to be Jim at New Life. And that's what made it possible for me to be safe with guys at Every Man's Battle and make a safe place for guys. And so it's okay for them to say, these are some of the ugliest, most embarrassing things, most humiliating things about being Joe or Dave or whatever. And nobody's mocking them, ridiculing them, humiliating them. They're saying, I understand.
Mm-hmm.
And let's walk through this together.
Oh, it's so good. Talk to somebody, Jim, that's really struggling to humble down and get some help. They don't want to be found out. What do you say to that guy?
Look for the safest person that you know. It may be a pastor. It may be a brother. It actually may be calling New Life and saying, I know I need help. Can you tell me more about Every Man's Battle? Can you tell me more about one of the other workshops? I need to find a place where I can tell the truth about what it means to be me and find hope that I don't have to stay stuck in this place. It's to find a safe place where it's okay to struggle, I think there's no other way to do it. And so that's my encouragement, Steve.
Well, it's very, very good encouragement. Jim, thank you for being with me on Life Recovery today. And again, thank you for all that you've done with and for New Life and for the people that have come our way. And I look forward to many more years of ministry with you. Every time I see you, it just produces a smile on my face. And that's not true about everybody. But thanks for being you. And I look forward to us being together again real soon. We'll take a break and come back for our final segment here on Life Recovery Today.
Life recovery isn't just about making the courageous choice to give up an addiction or dependency. It's a journey towards health, wholeness, and becoming your very best you. If you need resources to help you in your journey, we can help. There are many life recovery resources that you can do on your own, with a group, or with your church. We have Bibles, workbooks, and devotionals that you can use to work your recovery right where you are. That's the beauty of life recovery. To learn more or to get the Life Recovery Bible or any other life recovery resource, visit liferecoverytoday.net or call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. 1-800-NEW-LIFE.
Welcome back to Life Recovery Today. You know, maybe you are like Jim and you're just living the great job and enjoying life, and all of a sudden it's over. It's pretty tough when those things happen. But God really does have something for us. He's never done with us. Sometimes we feel like we're forgotten, and then, you know, if we could just look 5 years in the future, we'd see some pretty amazing things open up. It's one of the reasons why I love the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change. It could be called the courage prayer too, because then it goes from serenity and to give me the courage to change the things that I can. And so I've got some responsibility here. I've got to do what I can. And it could be called the wisdom prayer. Give me the wisdom, Lord, to know the difference between those things that I can change and those that I cannot. One little note on the serenity prayer. I might add this. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change and the courage and the buddies that I need to change the things that I can, because we can't do it alone. We need help. Iron sharpens iron, and especially when it comes to men, we need other men if we're going to become godly men. If you need some help, would you call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE? If you need a resource, we have it. But more than anything, would you just call on God and surrender to whatever He has for your life? See you next time.
Thanks for joining us for Life Recovery Today with Stephen Arterburn. We hope this program has helped you integrate God's truth and wisdom into your recovery journey. This program is brought to you by New Life Ministries, and it's your support that keeps this program on the air. When you contact us for any reason, be sure to let us know that you watch on NRB. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE or go to liferecoverytoday.net. Please join us again next week for more Life Recovery Today.